In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple things. One is changing the color of objects in the world, and the other one is how to keyframe the camera. So both of these items use the I on the keyboard to set keyframes. So I'm going to start by changing the color of this object. So I'm going to go to my color or material pane here. You can only change the color of the first material, and you actually change it using this. You don't add more colors. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm at frame 1. I'm going to keyframe this first color by hovering over this color selector and typing I on my keyboard, and you can see that a little frame happened around that color. I'm going to go ahead and go to some other point in time, and I'm going to change the color again. I'm going to change the color to a different color, so maybe like pink or something. And I'm going to insert a keyframe there using I, and you could see, I don't know if you could see, but I could tell it changed color just a little bit there. And then if I go to another point in time, I'm going to change the color again, yellow or whatever, and then I'm going to I, and that inserted a keyframe there. If I go into my animation view, I can see now that if I look at, what was that originally, the green cube? If I look inside the green cube, now inside there I now have a material that is keyframed. So that's that color of that original cube. Okay, so that's one way to use I. You can do basically the same exact thing, but for the world. So if I go to my frame, I think I just did 2 keyframes here already, so I went to frame 1. I had a certain color. I did I hovering over the horizon color, and then I again hovering over the zenith color. That set the keyframes for those 2. And then at the end, I did I and I again for each one and set this as my world. You can't tell that that's happening here, but at the end of this video I'll show you how to do kind of a test render of your lighting and world and everything together so you can see what it looks like as an animation. Okay, so now I want to talk about how to keyframe the camera. What I've found to be the easiest is a combination of Control-Alt-0 along with I to insert keyframes for the camera, and then also a new thing that's Shift-F, and that's first-person view. It's what you see in a lot of games. So I'm going to go ahead and do Shift-F right now. And that lets me just move my mouse, and it moves the scene around me so that I can get a certain view. I can also zoom in or out, or shift and hold down my middle mouse button to move side to side until I have a reasonable view. Whatever your view is, it's not gonna, your camera won't see the whole thing usually, so just be aware that it's going to be a smaller subset of your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do Control-Alt-0. And that took a snapshot of what my screen was originally. I don't really like the fact that, oh, well, first of all, I should be at frame 0. And by the way, if you haven't done this yet, you should go ahead and change your end frame to 720 or higher. 720 is the minimum number of frames that you need for your animation. Okay, so I've done Control-Alt-0, so I'm looking through my camera right now. I don't really like where it is, but I can change that by right-clicking on the camera edge. And then if I right-click inside the camera without clicking on an actual object, I can drag, so I just right-clicked and I'm holding down the right-click and dragging, so I can do that to change what I see. And I can also zoom in or out, so I let go of the right-click. I can still move around and change my view, and I can also hold down my middle mouse button to zoom in and out. So maybe I want to zoom out just a little bit. Oopsie, there it goes. So if I You don't have to hold down your middle mouse button. You can just click it. Zoom in or out by moving your mouse up and down. Left click to set that, and I'm going to go ahead and right click again and drag this up a little bit so I have all 3 cubes in my view. Left click to set it. Once I have my view, my camera view, how I want it, I can type I on my keyboard, and then I'm going to do location, rotation, scale. That's just a keyframe there. And then I'm going to try and see where else I want to look here. So I'm going to go ahead and play. So that set a camera keyframe. Okay, so let's say maybe I want to, I don't know, look at this teal cube as it's doing its thing here. So maybe, oh, and it used to be orange, I think. That's another one that I changed the color of. Oh, also pink. So I want to maybe follow that cube. So I'm going to look at a certain point in time. Get out of there, camera. And I want to get a view of that cube at that point in time. So I'll think about what view I want to have of that cube at that point in time. Maybe something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and keyframe the camera here. So I'm going to do another Control-Alt-0. I want to maybe swing this around a little bit. And then I'm going to do I, location, rotation, scale, to set another camera keyframe. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like now. As long as I'm in this camera view, it'll show me what's going to happen in my scene here. And I don't know if you can tell, but it looks like this grid is moving at the very beginning, but it's actually the camera moving. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and follow that pink turning into blue cube across here. Let's see, somewhere, I guess that's a good one. So I'm going to try and get a good view of that. Maybe something like this. And again, right click and change my view here. I to insert a camera keyframe, location, rotation, scale. And now if I go back to the beginning, there it is. And then I could maybe switch my view and start following the blue cube or whatever. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Zoom in. If I wanted to, I could hold the camera still for a little bit, and that would be an animation. So just like any other keyframe, if you want it to stay still, you would right-click and duplicate, Shift-D, pull across, and now the camera should stay still. Oops, I forgot to be in camera view. So if you want to be in camera view at any time that you didn't do Control-Alt-0, in animation mode, you can look in this window. And by the way, you can click Z to show the actual object view, or Z to show the wireframe view. Or in this window, you can type 0 on your number pad, and that will show you the camera view. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the beginning and hit play. So you could see there in the middle, the camera stayed still. Okay. I want to show you quickly how to render your frames. Then I'm going to pause. I'm not going to make you wait while I render all these frames because it takes a little while. You can be either in animation view or in default view. It doesn't really matter. In the properties pane, you want the render, which is the first camera here. And you're going to hit animation. This is going to render all of the frames between start and end. It'll render one, basically F12, one F12 view for each frame. If you want to just check along the way at a certain camera view, you can always hit F12 and it will render wherever your green timeline indicator is. So I've just rendered frame 66, and that shows me up here. I've just rendered frame 66. It hasn't rendered the whole animation, just one frame. I can hit escape, and to render the whole animation, which, how far do I go? I go to about 120. So I don't need to render all my frames right now, so I'm going to go ahead and change my end for a minute. And I'm going to hit this animation button. And then you'll see that it starts, it's basically hitting F12 once for each frame and saving those to a folder. Okay, so I'm going to hit pause and I'll come back when this is done. Okay, so all my frames are rendered. I'm at frame 120 here, so this is my last rendered frame. To view all of those frames as a movie, I can come up here to the render menu, and again you can be in default or it doesn't matter where you are, this render menu is always available. So I can go up to render and say play rendered animation, and there is my rendered animation. So this includes all the lighting. This is actually what your movie would look like. This is not the final movie because it's actually just a collection of pictures right now. Later on, it's called compositing. When we composite together all the sound and the frames together, we will make a MP4 movie that you could put on your phone or email to somebody or whatever. Right now it's just it's a bunch of PNG pictures. Okay, so that's the basics of camera. I've showed you the basics of how to aim your camera and keyframe it. There are other things you can do, like have the camera follow a smooth path through your animation, or have the camera keep aiming toward a certain target all the time. And I'm going to add those as links. That Born CG guy did a pretty good job of explaining those, so I'm just going to use his videos on that. There's one other way that you can aim the camera that I'll show you real quick, and that is to use Control-Alt-Q, and it's called quad view. Control-Alt-Q gets you in, and Control-Alt-Q also gets you out. If you get stuck in this view, just do Control-Alt-Q again. I'm going to change this window up here to my camera view. And, whoopsie, camera view. And then each of these windows is set. You can't change it. This is top view, front view, right view. And you can actually just move the camera manually and watch what it does in this window for camera perspective. This can be a little trickier, but some people like this better. Oops. There we go. I can do whatever. I can rotate the camera with R and move it using these little things, or you can change, rotate, whatever. And keyframe, if you have keyframes turned on with this, then anytime you move the camera, it's going to be keyframing. So you can do it just like you do objects. Turn keyframing on, go to the time, set the camera angle, go to another time, set the camera, location and angle and whatever, and it'll set keyframes for you automatically. Once again, Control-Alt-Q will get you out of that view, and you can play around with that if you want to.